historic meeting between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in. The leaders of these two nations have not met in more than a decade. Their summit comes just 1 week after Kim announced that North Korea would suspend its nuclear and missile testing. President Trump has said he plans to meet with Kim Jong-un in May or June.
The claim that President Trump stole the 2016 election is going to federal court. A Democratic Party lawsuit today alleges a conspiracy and seeks civil damages. It comes as the president is also doing battle with former FBI Director James Comey.
The Devil's Advocate podcast is an opinion talk show and is the attempt of a few friends to have a reasonable conversation about current events without the vitriol that we've become accustomed to in today's modern political climate. TDAP is what happens when a few normal people sit down and discuss the week's top stories by having a rational and somewhat entertaining conversation. The goal of TDAP is to provide a forum for the listener to hear multiple perspectives on a myriad of topics, instead of being bombarded with the same one-sided debates that we commonly get from news and media organizations. It is hosted by Brandon Condict, Mitchell Hernandez, and Franklin Everhart.
The high-power, high-profile addition to the president's personal legal team. He is Rudy Giuliani, whose resume includes U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. The hiring of Giuliani comes as allies of the president are concerned another of his personal lawyers, Michael Cohen, could flip.
Alrighty, so here's the interesting thing about this week. First of all, Mitch is off, and so it's just Frank and I. Frank, say hi.
Hello. I fucked it up, man.
You know,
I had one job.
You had one job. No, what's funny is I realized that for almost 50 episodes, we never it's up to the audience to figure out whose voice is whose, right? Unless, especially with you, because up until the last episode, we've been using the old fuck intro that doesn't make any goddamn sense. It just doesn't have Frank's name in it. So, we should start introducing ourselves probably, so if this is your first time, you understand who is saying what. Unfortunately, Mitch isn't here this week, so you have to tune in next time. But the other interesting thing about this week is that we probably shouldn't be doing this. A lot of stuff has been going on.
You could almost say that about the entire podcast again. Yeah. Just be like, you really shouldn't be doing this, guys.
Yeah, maybe so. But we've all been very busy, and we've all got. It's just been a crazy schedule for the last week. Mitch is being a responsible citizen, and I don't know if that was the right way to term it, but Mitch is doing college things, and he's being all studied up and in his books tonight, so he's not available tonight for us. I've had 2 kids puking and pooping all over the place for the last couple days, so it's just been, you'll see as this episode progresses why we probably weren't prepared enough to do this. But anyway, so let's jump into this. I will say that this episode is probably going to feel more like just a rest of the week segment. Probably won't make the runtime that it usually does. That may or may not be a good thing. That's for you, the listener, to decide. Maybe we talk too fucking much, but then stop, press, and play. Don't do that. That's a bad way to plug the show. All right.
There go all of our subscribers.
Right. Everybody's gone. They just tuned out. So anyway, let's get into some of this stuff that's been going on this week in the good old U.S. of A. Donald Trump. Well, not necessarily. That's just how I typically start the show, so I'm actually wrong for starting with Donald Trump on this one. North Korea and Donald Trump, I guess, they're going to be Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump are set to have future talks. We already know that. We've talked about that before on the show. An interesting development that's come out in the last few days is that Kim is now saying that they are not. They're halting their nuclear program, or they're willing to halt their nuclear program. Do you have an article on that, right?
Yeah, well, more generally, but Trump recently confirmed that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo secretly met with Kim Jong-un over Easter weekend, which is like increasing the chances, because like anything in the Trump organization, if he says something's going to happen, you have to wait and see if it actually happens.
Right. Did you see
and,
did you see
Go
Trump
ahead.
and how he spilled that? The Daily Show did a fucking great piece on it. Where Donald Trump is basically like, yo, it's the walk from the plane into the White House or whatever. I believe he's standing right next to Melania, and there's a bunch of reporters yelling, Mr. Trump, Donald Trump, Mr. President, whatever. Asking him like, hey, did you guys meet with North Korea? Are you going to meet with North Korea? And like, it's so funny because, as Trevor Noah pointed out, like, he ignores all the questions on the walk to the White House, but he's a little boy and he can't help it. So like, as he's almost taken that final step to enter the White House, he just like turned around and gave the most childish, smuggest smile that I've ever seen, and all he did was yes, we did meet with him. It was so good. Like, we'll go ahead and link to that little clip because you have to watch it. It is the funniest shit that I've ever seen. It's the one moment that I didn't hate Donald Trump because I had to just laugh. I feel like you're just a little boy. Like, it's fucking Christmas for you. So here,
yeah, but there does seem to be more optimism. Just sorry to cut you off, but like, so I told you this, but South Korea and North Korea quit blasting music at each other,
right?
Which has been a tradition for years. North Korea has been blasting South Korea with propaganda, and South Korea in kind has been blasting K-pop at them,
which is awesome. The only thing
the cutest response ever,
right? The only thing that could be worse than having K-pop blasted at you is having Nickelback blasted at you. Like,
I love that they're kind of admitting by doing that pop music is just pure propaganda. Like,
right.
This is the democratic way of doing propaganda.
Right. Well, and it speaks to the fact that, like, technically the Korean War never ended, and like when Donald Trump said that earlier this week,
the American Korean War ended.
Right. But the Korean War never ended, and it was funny because Donald Trump said it like he was informing us all of that, which I think he said because he probably just learned that last week that it never ended. But it is an interesting thing that this has just been ongoing. They're not killing each other per se. They're not in active like in each other's countries with armies and shit, but technically, it's never ended. So, but let's
but
go.
I mean, again, I don't know how much you're like. I would say Trump's done a good job on this, but I don't know how much the United States getting involved is like. You have to give South Korea a large portion of the credit for this, right? Like, they're willing to. I'm trying to think of the equivalent of another.
Well. Here's the thing.
They're forgiving a country that has treated them terribly for a long time.
Right. And here's the thing. Me personally, I give I put the credit on a few parties. One being South Korea, because this new president, who basically his platform coming in was, hey, I want to talk to these guys and figure this shit out. Like, you have to put some level of credit on his shoulders. I think also the fact that China got involved a month ago and was like, hey, Kim, why don't you bring your armored train over here and we'll have some talks before you meet with America. I would probably, we don't know what happened in that meeting, but I would bet that has something to do with it as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's been many adults, well, quote unquote adults in the room trying to mediate. But it is it's the equivalent to me of if Israel and Palestine were able to forgive the other side and be like, hey, what if we talk about, a possible peace treaty, which is what they're going to do Friday as of this recording in just a few days. So they're going to have their first meeting with North and South Korea, the top leadership.
Do we believe that do we believe, you and I, believe that we're actually going to see progress here? Because what we've seen from North Korea for decades is that for decades we've seen them pump their fists to get sanctions removed, and then when they get removed, they go back to doing their own shit. And we've said on this show for the entirety of it, my entire point with North Korea from the beginning was, once they get nuclear weapons, aren't they kind of at the table anyway? And I know the three of us, when Mitch is here, we've had the conversation. Like, now they've brought themselves to the table with nuclear weapons. So do we really believe that these talks are going to stop?
I guess it comes down to what their goal has been. Like, has their goal just been to be, like, to keep their independence, or has their goal been to retake over South Korea?
Right.
Because, like, it could be just like, if they just decided, like, you know what, screw it, we don't want to take over South Korea, we just want to have a bigger seat at the table, we want to be recognized by the UN, and, you know, we can do it by essentially just modifying what we were doing with the South Koreans against the Americans, or against, you know, the rest of the world, and hold up our nukes. Like, it depends on what they wanted, and it's hard to tell, because even with all the propaganda, no one knows what Kim Jong-un truly wants.
Well, right.
Here's
what I do want to say, and I don't like getting in the habit. There have been a couple of episodes where I've done it, but I don't like getting in the habit of speaking for people that aren't here. But I talked to Mitch on the phone today, and I thought that he had a really valid point. And so I'm gonna say it on his behalf.
You're gonna steal it. You should not even given him credit.
I'm absolutely giving him credit. I was on the phone with him. That's his credit. Like, this is Mitch's point. But what I do want to say,
I would have just stolen his good point.
All right. What I do want to say is that we'll probably bring this up again next week when he's on, because I don't want to misquote Mitch here, and I'm not going to quote him. I'm going to paraphrase him, and I also want to allow him a chance to correct me if I'm wrong.
And B, we're going to have some more news with the talks and how that went, because I'm really interested with that.
Yeah, we definitely will. But so Mitch had made the point today. He was like, I know there's a lot of people that don't want to give Trump any credit for this, but let's try to look at it this way for a second. First of all, because I had asked him the same question that I just asked you. Do we have reason to trust Kim when he says that we're going to halt our nuclear program, and Mitch basically said the same thing as you, that it depends on what his goal is, but if his goal has been to get himself to the table, then yes, I think it makes sense that he would actually halt the nuclear program. And I think what he said, that I think Donald Trump did it in a shitty way, but I think you give Donald Trump credit for this, because it's almost like Kim's always been the crazy guy in the conversation, right? Until Donald Trump showed up and said, look, dude, we'll just fucking nuke you. Like, straight up, we'll just nuke you. And so it almost, his point,
you needed someone without the diplomacy. You needed someone with the
right,
you know, the hot tempered take.
Yeah, and his point
that's interesting. Like yeah, go ahead.
Well, Mitch's point was that, you know, maybe Donald Trump out crazied the crazy guy, and now the crazy guy is sitting there going, oh shit, this dude's crazy. If, like, he will destroy us, maybe we just come to the table and figure this shit out. And maybe Mitch is right. Like, maybe he is, you know?
Yeah. And I will give him credit. You know, that's one of the things Obama said when Trump was coming in, is that this is going to be the thing you have to deal with.
Right.
Because every president, including me, has invariably, one way or another, kicked the can down the road. And now it's up to you to actually solve the problem. And given him that, like, you know, that was what the task he was given. You're going to solve the North Korea problem in America,
which is like,
he's doing a remarkably good job.
Yeah, no shit. It's also like, when you think about it, he's the scariest fucking person to put that in the hands of. Like, he's absolutely.
Do you think if Obama would have called Kim Jong-un Rocket Man, that it would have been as effective? Like, do you think like Obama could have?
No, not at all.
To be
I honestly think Donald Trump is the only one that can name call like that. I
wonder if history will look back on that as like we had averted World War III, and it was oddly because of this guy who was very brash and, unpolished in ways.
I mean, maybe so. And then if that's
unintended consequences.
If that's the case, then you have to give him credit where credit is due. The problem is that I don't want to say it's not effective because we won't know until we see how everything plays out. But
cautiously optimistic is where we're at now.
Right, but it is something that seems, at least by typical political nature and climate and the way the inner workings of political circles and parties and leaders and whatever, it seems like a ridiculous thing. Like, if you're put yourself, let's pretend right now it's not 2018. Let's pretend that right now it's 2015. Obama's still president. The idea that the next president is going to come in and no matter who it is, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's, Jeb Bush, we don't know at that point because hypothetically it's 2015. If we are being told, look into the future and the next president is just going to name call every fucking leader in the world, we probably would have not voted for that guy, right? We probably would have not, because that's not how it works.
We knew he, on the campaign trail and during the debates, he was that person, and we voted for him, to some degree.
Right.
Not popular vote, but...
Well, right.
So I guess we did.
Well, you got to take away the Russian votes and shit, but...
Yeah. Oh.
See, and those are the things I can say when Mitch isn't here. So, but anyway, so yeah, I don't know. It's definitely an interesting... Like, this is turning out more interesting than I thought, and especially if you've been listening since the beginning, we've talked about North Korea a lot. Like, North Korea has
probably the most, reoccurring segment.
Yeah, it is.
You've ever had.
Other than guns. It literally...
Mass shootings in Korea.
Yeah, and it's weird if you go back and you listen to our conversations about North Korea from a year and a half ago to right now. The conversation is completely different than it was. And it's just, man, it's interesting. So,
back when we were taking bets on who would be involved in World War III and what sides would be drawn up.
So, we'll see. I don't like to jump ahead of myself and start saying, oh, well, it's fixed. Everything's good and whatever. But, I also, as a person who's outspokenly not a Trump guy, think that, we weren't here with Obama, so at least let's see what happens. Now, if it turns out that we end up in World War III, I'll probably be pretty close to one of the first people to be like, Trump, you idiot. Why'd you say that? Maybe don't brush dandruff off his shoulder, you dick. Not everybody is Macron. You can't just make out with them in front of the world. But, I don't know. I want to give him credit where credit is due. So I'm hopefully
cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. I hope that this turns out well. I'm still skeptical. I'm still wary, but I mean, dude, it doesn't look doom and gloom like it did a year and a half ago when we started talking this topic. So,
but then, we also don't know what's going to happen in a year from now.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah,
the last 2 years have been a roller coaster ride of unexpected events,
no shit.
So.
And especially, I mean, shit, you just brought up Rocket Man, but when that sentence was said, when he called him Rocket Man, I facepalmed myself. Dude,
didn't they move the doomsday clock the closest it's been in 30 years or something?
Yeah.
Right around that time.
Right. So it's just and now I don't know. Again, this could all be bullshit, and Kim could be just playing. Remember, something that I've said throughout the show, and something that I truly believe, is Donald Trump is playable. He is easy to play because you see how he works.
He's so well known. His personality is so well dissected that people get you get to know his poker face almost,
right? And
you get to think you do.
It's funny because I was just gonna say, this is a guy who, if he was playing poker, lays all the cards down on the table.
but just somehow gets incredibly lucky and gets a straight flush and still beats you.
Yeah, yeah. It's like Texas.
He doesn't play the game he doesn't play the game smart, but somehow he seems to come out on top every time.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And I don't know that it's that he comes out on top every time. I just think
enough that he's maintained his his wealth.
Yeah.
That's got to be some kind of luck.
Well, we'll see how he contains his wealth. Actually, that's a good way to throw in a story that I didn't tell you we were going to talk about. And so we'll just segue here real quick. And the 1980s, Trump impersonated his own publicist, right? We've talked about this multiple times.
Because the name was John Barron. Trump went on to name his son Barron.
Right. And so this came out this week that he lied to Forbes magazine to get onto the top 400 or whatever. And
he tried to convince them that he was more wealthy than he was, which is, I think, a reoccurring motif in his life.
So it's so his whole origin story is a fucking lie, right? Like, again, I'll take a Trevor Noah statement, but it's almost like if you found out that Batman's parents didn't die, they just moved to Florida, like. What? Your whole everything that this is based on is bullshit. You called and lied to people. That was like. I don't know. It was just
with a really recognizable speech pattern.
Yeah,
like
nobody talks like Trump except for everybody now.
Accent. Yeah, Trump can't do an accent though.
No.
Have you ever seen him try to impersonate someone? Like besides the disabled reporter, but he can't do an audio. He can't he's like me. I can't do a voice besides my own.
Right.
So I don't try. I don't try to pretend I'm Mitch.
It's unfortunate that Mitch is off tonight because Mitch would be doing a Hispanic accent in Trump's mannerisms because Mitch is so good at impersonations. Oh man,
he missed a call as a ventriloquist.
Yeah, he definitely did or something. I don't know. All right, so let's move forward into some of these other happenings in the last couple of weeks. Speaking of Trump, the DNC sues Trump, right? What did
the DNC filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit this past week against the Russian government, the Trump campaign, and the WikiLeaks organization, alleging that a far-reaching conspiracy to disrupt the 2016 campaign until the election towards Donald Trump occurred.
So, do you think that, what do you think of that?
I think it's a reach. I don't think it's gonna.
It's just a political play, right?
Well, yeah, I think it's also it's maybe a way to get certain things discoverable in court and out there if they're able to. I don't know enough about the law to say for sure, but I'm sure there's a reason they're doing it, and there's a reason they're doing it now.
Yeah, it just
after they waited for enough evidence.
Doesn't it make the Democrats look bad to you?
Anytime someone comes out and uses the phrase "far-reaching conspiracy," no matter how right they might be, it makes them come off like a crackpot.
Yeah, absolutely, and
it truly does.
With no we have said, and the argument that we've had on the show plenty of times is that. Is there any evidence that the campaign colluded? Is there any evidence that the campaign worked with a foreign government? And
show me the evidence.
Right, and we have always said that, or I have always said that the fucking investigation isn't over, so we don't know. But as far as the investigation not being over and us not knowing. That's something that the Trump supporters can use as they try to use it as evidence that there's nothing there. It is what it is. Nothing has been talked about yet. But if you and I are being honest with each other, does it seem like the more I say that, well, the investigation isn't over, we don't know anything yet, the Mueller team hasn't talked, don't you think that if there was evidence of rushing collusion, at least at this point in April of 2018, that somebody would have leaked something. Like, almost everything gets leaked. When Cohen's office...
Yeah, except for Mueller. You've had no leaks from Mueller's team. You've had the 2 or 3 firings. Was it Carter Pate? No. Is that what?
No.
Who were the 2 guys who got fired? They were exchanging text messages. They were anti-Trump. I'm blanking on the names of them.
Peter Strzok and Lisa Page.
Yes, thank you. I knew it was... Okay, I got it close. But yeah, like, you've had that incident, but even those people, after leaving, didn't give interviews, besmirch the team. Like, they are... And if Mueller is to be believed, and, I just finished reading Comey's book, and we'll talk about that later, but if he has a lot of praise for Mueller...
I'm actually excited, I'm gonna interrupt you for 1 second. I apologize. If you haven't read Comey's book, audience, you should read Comey's book. And if you want a review of it, we're planning on doing that next week because, as Frank just said, he read the book. He's already finished with it. Mitch and I are in the middle of it right now, and it is so much more than what the media is turning it into, and it's not at all what the media has claimed it is. If you think this is a book about Trump, you're gonna be disappointed. It's a good fucking book.
It's a book about the last 30 years in America,
right,
as seen through the eyes of someone who has one of the most interesting jobs in America.
It's so if you want to know more about that, definitely check out episode 50 next week, because we're
special episode.
Yeah, I think all 3 of us are very excited about doing this segment too, because the book is very... We'll get into it next week, but if you haven't read it,
it's
go
exciting.
read it. It's decent. It's worth the read, and it's like 240 pages or something like that.
So if you
quick read,
go to Audible, sign up for a free trial, and listen to it, because he narrates his own book, and it's even more powerful.
Yeah,
I can attest.
It is. So,
but getting back to my point, though, if that book is to be believed, and I think it is, we'll get into that next week. But he paints Mueller as like the smartest man he knows, like maybe a little more reserved and less like playful, but he says he's like truly one of the smartest men and one of the smartest leaders and bosses. So I think if that is the case, then I think Mueller just hired really good people for this investigation, people with integrity, people who didn't have because I don't think the Strzok thing was that much. If you don't like Trump, that's not a shocker in today's world. Most of Washington doesn't like Trump. Mueller and Comey, who are Republicans, don't like Trump. Like it's a common theme.
Yeah,
so I think it's possible that if they could have something that it wouldn't get leaked.
Wouldn't you think though that because the Mueller team has already started filing charges, wouldn't you think we would see charges that kind of point us in that direction? I mean, I know that,
but it's hard. I think people even pointed out that even if Mueller finds something, he really doesn't have the power to do anything about it.
Right.
He can't put the president in jail. So I'm wondering if he does find something, if it's he's going to take time to mull it over and decide the best way. Kind of the Comey thing of the memos, like what can I do to actually get the American people to believe this?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, you definitely might be right. And I do agree with you that, like, I still believe that Mueller has integrity, and that's the reason that we haven't seen leaks. And that's my thing is,
or even, you've seen the right defend him and say, like,
right,
we won't let him get fired.
That's where my gut is, right? Because I've said it a million times that when this all started, when he was right after Comey was fired and Mueller was appointed, both the right and the left came out and said, look, if there's anybody that's going to do this investigation, this is the guy we want doing it, because he does have credibility. He does have integrity. He is a straight shooter, and he is going to do his job. And then since that's happened over the last year or whatever, the right both sides have gone to their talking points, and the right has turned into Mueller is this, it's a witch hunt and all of this shit. But my gut tells me that when they all came out and said in the beginning that he has integrity, that was them laying their cards on the table. That was them being honest for a second before they had to find their talking points. So I believe that Mueller is still all of those things that both sides said. I just think that they have they have a political agenda and they've got to stick to that, So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But as far as the lawsuit goes, what do you think happens with it? You think that it just gets thrown out, dismissed, whatever?
Yeah, I don't know, because you're like, hey, can you sue the Russian government in a Manhattan court? I don't know.
I don't. If you can, I don't think there's any repercussions for it.
Yeah. I think it's much more symbolic than someone's gonna be brought to the court in handcuffs and we're gonna try them.
Right.
I think it's much more about like we want certain items to be discoverable. Or we want to give it to the court.
Like to that point, even if you do sue them, what are you gonna get out of it? Money? Like what?
Are they going to reverse the 2016 election results
and
usher Hillary in? Like, yeah, I don't. That's why I think it's symbolic. Like, it's not going to do anything.
Right. It's just a move like the representative in Texas or whatever who stands up every day and says, "I move a motion to impeach Trump." Like, shut up! You don't have the numbers on your side. Stop doing this. This is charade. Like.
Yeah. You're hoping that if Trump gets impeached, you can just look back and be like, look, I was the first one that said it, and you can gain a little notoriety.
I've been saying it forever.
It's a play.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think it is more symbolic than anything else, and I think it's bullshit. I think it makes them look petty. I think that instead of filing symbolic, like to me it's the same thing as trying to repeal Obamacare a million times when you know it's not going to happen. Like, you know what, take a break and do your job for a minute. Like,
just stop it.
Yeah. Especially since it's 2018, the Congress isn't working anyway because except for all of the Republicans who are retiring, like they've got elections coming up, so like nobody's willing to put their name on anything this year. Like, except for symbolic bullshit. So, I don't know. Dumb. So,
yeah. Speaking of Trump's legal team, it had another shakeup this week.
Yeah,
it finally got some lawyers.
Yeah,
well, I don't know if he is a lawyer.
Well, no, Giuliani's not, and that was the big name.
No, he was a lawyer 30 years ago.
Right, he was.
He has not practiced law in a long time.
No, and he's not practiced sanity for even longer. But he also added a couple other lawyers, but Giuliani was the biggest name, and that's because Cohen is pretty much gone now. Like, can't.
There have been reports that Trump is Giuliani's preparing Trump for when Cohen flips on him.
Right.
Though Trump came out, or Trump tweeted rather, that Cohen won't flip.
But
then
again,
did you see his tweet though? He preferenced it where he said like people often flip and tell lies when faced with jail time.
Right.
So if Cohen does flip, that's gonna be his statement. Oh, he's lying because they
that's because
coerced him into it.
That's because Trump
Cops are so bad.
Trump for his entire life has never had any fucking repercussions for anything that he does. So he believes he can just set the narrative. And there's a bunch of puppets in this country that buy into his narrative, that this is a witch hunt, that he's going to flip and it's a lie, and that Comey is a liar, and that all of these people are out to get him because somehow the billionaire, which we don't know,
I could hear the air quotes.
Yeah,
with that word.
I know, I did them. But the poor billionaire is he is the victim here. He's always the victim, right? And like, so he's trying to write the narrative. He's doing what he always does. He comes out and he says shit before the fact, so that is now the story. If Cohen does flip, then he's just lying. The fact of the matter is, I don't know that there's anything there for Cohen to flip on. I mean, there would have to be something there for Cohen to flip. Obviously, Trump is worried about it. That's why he's setting the narrative. That's why he's bringing in Giuliani. That's why he's adding more lawyers.
Isn't it funny that Trump only thinks that that there's a coercive techniques in interrogation when it's his lawyer it's being used on? When black people are coerced by cops or intimidated, that's doesn't matter.
To be honest with you, like, I'm gonna piss off like half of the listeners now, but isn't that kind of the way? Actually, here, let me piss off all of them. That's the way both parties treat shit. Like, that's the way, especially when it comes to law enforcement. You look at liberals, and liberals tell you cops are the freaking bad guys all day long. They're just out there shooting black people, and you know what?
Until their place is robbed, and then they call the cops.
Well, but they'll also say, like, there's a good portion of liberals that'll say, yeah, but cops are the only ones that should have guns. What? Like, what are you talking about? They can't be the bad guy and the good guy, in the same way that Republicans are blue lives matter, until it comes to the highest law enforcement agency in the country, and then it's a fucking witch hunt. Like, come on, you're playing sides. Both sides play to their respective bases, and that's why politics is so that you have to weed through the minutia. You have to get through all of that bullshit to figure out the real story. That's why this show exists, so that you don't have to weed through it. We're just a couple of regular guys talking about shit the way that you talk about shit, because this is how politics really is, right? I don't want to be
as seen by the fact that we call it shit. I don't think most news organizations do that.
No, because they have something to sell. They have ratings to make. They have an agenda, and they have a group of followers that they have to appeal to. So they'll sensationalize stories, and then it's up to you, the common person, to weed through that and figure out what the reality is. But the fact of the matter is, they both play to their respective sides, and that's annoying if it's nothing else. You know,
it is. That was a brilliant tirade, though. Like, that was well worthy of
yeah,
getting that angry.
Right. Sometimes
getting back to Giuliani, though.
Yeah, no shit. We should change the name of the show to, like, We Rant a Lot. So
off topic with Brandon.
Right. No shit. So what do you think about Giuliani's addition to this team?
I don't know. Giuliani's was someone, like, he's an interesting dude, because he's someone that after 9/11, like, he was America's mayor. He was so respected the way he handled 9/11, and he was seen as, like, having so much, like, people loved him. He was the only, like, mayor that everyone could name.
Right.
But then he just went off the rails like crazy, at least in a lot of people's minds, with, you know, the what is it, stop and frisk that he did. I know he had a whole thing with the homeless, a very big controversial, trying to, like, move them out of New York.
Yeah, that he just sent them to New Jersey, like, pretty much what he did.
That's where our trash goes anyway, right? Send it to New Jersey.
Right. I actually, as somebody who is not a fan of Donald Trump, love that Giuliani has been added to the team, because Giuliani is batshit crazy. So having more batshit crazy people around him, to me, only exposes him for what he is.
Well, yeah, and also point out, like, he joined his legal team. Giuliani, he did serve as a U.S. attorney for the Southern District in New York, but that was, you know, he's been a mayor for 20 years. 20 years ago he was the mayor.
Right.
He has not practiced law in quite a while. And even when he didn't practice for very long. So I don't know that he's a very good legal ad. Like, I think it's more just like he's the only person willing to join my defense.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think because he came out and said, like, oh, we'll wrap up this Mueller thing quickly. That's what I'm here to do.
Yeah, but that's what
Mueller was in charge of the FBI during 9/11, so
right.
he knows Giuliani well.
Yeah. And for anybody,
and I think that's why he got added.
Well,
is because Trump wants someone that knows Giuliani to try to, like, get someone between him and the barking dog.
That makes a lot of sense. At least because then you could, at least then, in theory, and not even in theory, like, the fact that Giuliani and Mueller know each other allows Donald Trump to go, what is this guy doing? You know him. What are the steps that he takes? And then, you know, if you try to, but at this point too, when they know that they're looking into, when the Trump team knows that they're being looked at for obstruction of justice too, asking those questions and trying to cock block them in any way is only going to add to the obstruction of justice. The thing is, and one of the things that I've kept saying for the last year is, and one of the things that I think actually in the back of Mitch's mind too has been like, man, I hope Brandon's not right, and I think he's even said it on the show, is that like the fact of the matter is the FBI is, and Mueller, the special counsel, is going to figure everything out. So for all of the people out there calling it a witch hunt, for all of the people that don't buy in to the investigation being real, you better hope that there is nothing there, because if there is something there, they're going to find it. And for as mishandled as the FBI does shit sometimes, at least seemingly, you look at the Hillary Clinton's email investigation, you're never going to convince me that the FBI doesn't know that those servers were acid washed, that those that was wrong, that shouldn't have happened. So,
or that the FBI doesn't, it does not record its what do you call it? Not interviews or whatever. When they interview a suspect, when they interviewed Hillary, when they interview anybody, they don't record it on tape. They don't take audio. They take handwritten notes.
Right.
And that becomes the truth to them, which I think is a very poor standard in 2018.
Yeah.
Like, fucking buy a tape, or pull out your phone and hit record.
Right.
Like,
yeah, no shit.
The only reason to do that is because you have shit that you like to put your thumb on and tilt the scale one way or another, and that's your final tactic,
Right. Yeah.
To stop investigations or to give your friends a pass. I totally believe that does happen.
Right.
And I don't trust the FBI 100% either, but you can't discredit everything they say.
No, you can't.
Based on the fact that they've been shitty. If that was the case, we wouldn't trust America.
Right.
This country's been incredibly shitty.
Right. And the only reason too and it makes me laugh when Giuliani says that this Mueller thing is going to be wrapped up quickly, because so has every other lawyer that he's had. Every other person that's been on Trump's legal team has said it's going to wrap up quickly, and I'm pretty sure they started saying that about 10 months ago, that it's only going to be it's only going to be another month.
If his lawyer came out
right.
If his lawyer came out and said that, oh no, this is going to be a 4-year deal like the Ken Starr thing, Trump would be furious.
Right. But they should at least tell Trump the truth, right? Like, they can lie to us, the American public, because of course
I would hope they are. I mean, if he's paying them and they're not, either A, they're stupid, or B, they're lying to their client, which might be even worse than being stupid.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't know. We'll see how it all plays out. But I think adding Giuliani to this, although now that you've posed the theory that, like, because they know each other, it may be a smart play, I think it's a laughable play, because I think Giuliani is laughable. Giuliani only has 9/11 under his belt that is really credible on a just all I'm saying,
a mass scale.
Yeah, on a mass scale. And if you look at what happened to Giuliani after 9/11, at who he became, he's kind of a shitty dude. Like,
he's a joke.
Yeah, he is a joke. And the only reason that he was credible then is for the same reason that Bush was credible for like 3 months during 9/11, because we were all in shock. We were shell-shocked from 9/11. So Giuliani was allowed to become America's mayor. That's why any of us know who the fuck Lee Greenwood is. That's not a good song. Like, I'm sorry, it's not a good song, but we loved it because we needed to buy it at the time. So, we'll see what Giuliani brings to this. I like to fucking rant.
President Trump seems to be standing by EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt, despite a series of concerns that appear to have put Pruitt's job security in jeopardy. Pruitt is fending off repeated questions over his housing arrangements, staffing decisions, and spending as head of the agency. The president said yesterday he still has confidence in Pruitt.
Michael Cohen, Trump's personal lawyer, was in court today desperately trying to keep his very small client list private. Michael Cohen has 3 known clients. One of them is Donald Trump, for whom he paid Stormy Daniels. Client number 2 is Elliot Broidy. That's Elliot. This is the guy. This guy is the former deputy finance chair for the RNC. Michael negotiated a $1.6 million payment to a Playboy model he had an affair with. And this morning, Michael Cohen was forced to reveal the name of a mystery third client. He tried everything to keep it secret, but the judge ordered him to reveal the name of client number 3. And shockingly, that client turned out to be my pal, Sean Hannity of Fox News, is client number 3.
Alrighty, this is a rantastic episode, so let's get back into this. I guess part 2 of what I already termed the rest of the week episode. Although historically, I've termed a lot of episodes that, and then they end up making time, and I probably shouldn't have. So
if you say it, it's going to be like a 2-hour episode every time.
Yeah, you know that's how it goes. So Pruitt, let's see. First name escaping me
Scott.
right now.
Scott Pruitt.
Scott Pruitt is in the news.
He's
week.
been in the news for a while, like pretty much
has.
since Trump put him in charge of the EPA.
And pretty much all for the same thing,
Well,
right?
that's what happens when you put a climate change denier as the head of the Environmental Protection Agency. It's going to generate controversy. I don't know why this is like shocking to some people.
Yeah, and I'm shocked because I was told that he was the best person for the job. So, I thought we were draining the swamp, but whatever. So go ahead and read me
nice cushy jobs.
Go ahead and read me this week's controversy on Scott Pruitt.
This week he's been running a condo in DC for like $50 a night, which adds up to about $1,500 a month. Insanely cheap, like something you would have paid in the 70s for that amount. Like DC property does not come cheap because it's where all of the politicians live. Yeah. So they have to have space there. So, it's prized territory.
And it's where no one else lives. So there's not a ton of property in DC. I'm very good friends with one of my very good friends works in DC, and I've been to DC after dark, and when if you've been to DC, if you've been to DC at night, like everything's closed because nobody fucking lives there. Like everybody lives in Virginia, or they live on the outskirts, but nobody actually lives in DC.
Yeah.
So the fact
and I'm sure most of them have like having a condo would be seen as a great thing, because if you have a late meeting, don't want to drive home,
right? Yeah. So basically, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's essentially that he is getting a sweet deal from a lobbyist, which is not great. Now they have indicated that the lobbyist did not lobby the EPA, but like it doesn't seem good if someone's a lobbyist that you're getting very favorable rental deals on prime property. It comes off as quid pro quo.
Like, why do we allow lobbyists? Like, what?
Technically, it is lawful that if you have an interest and you have money, like I see a point in letting people promote because you can do it about anything. If you want to get rid of cancer, and you want to put money into that, you can lobby to make people write laws that get certain medical drugs tested faster. I can see benefits to it, definitely, but it also has the high potential to be abused.
Right, and the problem is that we see it abused more than we see benefits from it. Like,
I think the benefits don't really get aired as much as the abuses get. Like when we finally catch one of them, a lobbyist doing something shady, which is all the time. It's controversial headlines.
It's almost like lobbying is theoretically good, but in practice it doesn't typically work out that way.
A lot like communism in that respect.
I was gonna say the same thing. Like, communism looks great on paper, but in practice, people are fucking people
waiting for stale bread. Yeah,
right. So, yeah, I mean,
and this is not the only time Scott Pruitt has been in trouble. His spending of public funds to travel abroad has been questioned a lot. He's authorized substantial pay raises for a pair of young aides without the White House's approval, which I believe you're supposed to get. And the behavior of his secretary detail, he wanted to use sirens in DC traffic, and they had to tell him that he was not allowed if it was a non-emergency. His security detail just wanted to zip him around town quickly.
Which,
he's the head of the EPA. Because the EPA has such, they're always on the cusp of an apocalypse. I mean, what's weird is that we kind of are with global warming, And that would be the thing you would be rushing to prevent, but he doesn't believe in global warming. So I don't know what the fuck he's rushing to.
Where are you trying to get so fast, dude? Especially, like, and again, if you've been to D.C., I don't even believe that, like, sirens help you in D.C. Have you ever, like,
I've been to D.C. once. It's been years. I was a child. We went as a school trip. But I do remember, like, there are a lot of stoplights. I do remember that.
There are a ton of stoplights. And the thing that I always notice when I'm in D.C. is that when you're walking in D.C., because there's so many stoplights and because there's, like, that's such a crowded place, when you're walking in D.C., you have longer to cross the street as a pedestrian. Those fucking tickers on the street lights or whatever, on the traffic
lights, do not
lights,
walk, where they tell you how long.
They start at like 176 and count down. Like, there's way more time to cross the street as a pedestrian than as a vehicle. So I don't know what sirens are doing in DC. I'm assuming nobody is allowed to have a heart attack in DC, because I don't know how anybody would get anywhere to save you. But to me, this is just ridiculous. Like, this whole thing is
like he should have been put in this position. Like, you don't put someone who doesn't believe in climate change.
Which could literally be said about every member of the cabinet, including the president, right?
I mean,
like,
I think Mitch would disagree, but, you know, like, people did vote
but
him
he's
there,
not
so.
here, so fuck him.
I think like we're called the devil's advocate. We have to at least try to give the other side's opinion.
Not if he's not here. Fuck that. No, but honestly, there's like two people that are qualified to be part of this entire administration, right? Mike Pence is probably qualified to be the vice president based on his past political experience, and Nikki Haley is qualified to be in her position.
Yeah, that's by her the way she can be stone faced. I would say Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Like, I don't agree with what she says, but my God, does she say it with conviction? And I've heard her shut down reporters in multiple ways, which is a trait you would have to have in that job.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, she's. I like it. Makes me laugh when you say I don't agree with what she says. Well, that's because she's paid to lie to you. So duh.
But you can't deny the fact that she does it with such like conviction. They're like, I believe that she believes it.
Yeah, but you know she doesn't. Like, no. The problem is that logic comes into play at some point, and you're like, oh yeah, you know you're bullshitting us. Like, I know that. You know what? I honestly believe that Sarah Sanders probably like hears what the president says and goes, all right, I'm going to turn my ears off at some point, so that, like, because you're right, she does say it like she believes it. I can't imagine. But I think that's
and the way that Sean Spicer never did that. Like, you can tell because he wanted to be happier. That wasn't a job for him because he was on Dancing with the Stars after he left.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, you could never see Sarah Huckabee Sanders, like, you can see it on her face. She has a different temperament, and it's much more of a combative temperament. I imagine she was on the debate team, because I think she just likes to, like, have confrontations.
Yeah, I could see that, too.
Which is, if you're going to be in politics, is that the attitude you want?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to get somebody that likes to argue. You know, and
because the person that tires out of arguing and gives in is no use politically.
No, absolutely not. So, you know, but Scott Pruitt, I think, is just another example of.
Well, do you want to talk about another example, because Sean Hannity is also in the news for that.
For what?
So he's had a lot of real estate dealings. It's come out because of the Cohen raid. Mm-hmm. It's come out that he has used he's used the nation's high foreclosure rate to work with HUD to buy up foreclosed homes and then flip them for a profit, while at the same time, like, rallying against government handouts on his show.
Yeah, that's because Sean Hannity, my mortal enemy, is a piece of shit. Like, duh. What's hilarious to me, I just want to point out something that you just briefly passed over. We've learned in the last episode, and we learned last week, that Sean Hannity is Michael Cohen's secret client, right?
And this is actually in response to yes. Do you remember the carefully worded way he said it? Like
he said, oh man, how did he say it? Exclusively almost. Exclusively almost. I've exclusively almost talked to him about real estate. So here's what's awesome. Let's do a callback to the last segment where we talked about whether or not Michael Cohen's going to flip. Michael Cohen gave up Sean Hannity's name after being asked twice. He's absolutely going to flip. Like, are you kidding me? This guy got asked twice by the judge who his other client was, and he said Sean Hannity's name. So, and then Sean Hannity, of course, went on his show and did the I never took money from him. I never did this. I never did that. I only asked him about his legal advice, which is, so he's not my lawyer. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's what lawyers do, is give you legal advice. But
out of the goodness of their heart, apparently, like you would pay hookers out of the goodness of your heart.
With Sean,
maybe not hookers. That's a strong word. Brandon, you're coming off of me. You're making me sexist now.
Right. First of all right, that's it. I'm doubling down. Okay, it is not sexist. How is it possible that through the entirety of this show, every time that we talk about why can't I think of Chris Christie? We talk about how Chris Christie looks like a beached whale in a sombrero, and we talk about how ugly Donald Trump is and his hair and all of this shit, and he's orange and he's got small hands and all this shit. The second I say that Kellyanne Conway looks drunk and trashy, I'm a sexist. Fuck that. She doesn't get a pass because she's a woman. I'm doubling down. I'm not going to stand for this. You guys will not call me out.
It's equality for all and also besmirchment for all.
Right.
It's an interesting take on life, Brandon.
Right. I'm playing the comedian card on this, okay? Lighten up, motherfuckers. I'm gonna trash people. That's what it's about.
It was clearly a joke. We just like to give you shit, I think.
Right. That's fine. You have no idea how when we turned the microphones off, and because like we've said, for audience members that are listening for the first or second time, we probably think I'm super sexist if that's true. But if you're listening only recently, then you should know that a lot of times, and more recently in the last several episodes, when the three of us are doing the show, or when like Frank and I right now, we're not in the same room. We're talking to each other over the phone and we're doing the show, but we can't fucking see each other, right? So what's funny to me is that like as soon as we turned everything off and as soon as I was not talking to you guys, I was so mad about getting called out for that. It was just like, fuck this. Like, why?
What's funny to me is that we've had like deep political conversations and discussions where we've gotten heated, especially you and Mitch. And that was the thing that, like, I'm really upset about that.
Yeah.
Did you bring that up?
No shit. Well, you know, especially...
Why you gotta go there, bro? Why you gotta go there?
I know. Well, and especially for me and Mitch. Mitch and I Frank and I have known each other for, what, like 3 years now? 3.5 years?
Right.
I think I've known Mitch for 10 to 12 years now. And before the show was ever even a glimpse in the future, there was never like this show long before it was ever even written down on paper or thought about as being a thing. These are the conversations that Mitch and I had. This is how the show kind of developed, is that on a daily basis, Mitch and I would be on the phone with each other and we would fight with each other. Like, not the way that we have conversations on the show. Actually, if you go back and listen to like the first few episodes, it was more like that, when Mitch and I were angry at each other before we both decided we needed to fucking lighten up a little bit and just have the conversation. But that's what this was. And so I'm used to fighting with people on the phone about politics. I'm used to debating people, and at the end of it being able to, you know, be like, okay, well, we disagree on whatever, Russia, whatever, but let's go watch Black Panther now. We can still be cool. That was one of the only things that after I was done with the conversation, I was like, F them. Like, why am I a sexist for that? So maybe I am. And if that's true, then I'm pulling the Trump card right now and I'm doubling and tripling down. But I'm going to call Kellyanne Conway out for looking like she's drunk every damn time she's on TV, because I don't like her, because she does look drunk, and because she's lying to you. So get over it, people. That's what happens.
Another person that's doubling down is Sean Hannity again, is really just like, excuse me, going on about the fact that he didn't pay Cohen, so he wasn't his lawyer, and that his almost exclusively line made it that his statement was technically true. He also just said over like he I guess he's like, his defense is that he can think that public welfare is bad, but then use it to make money because that's just smart business. There's nothing.
Right. And he tried to do he tried to slither his way out of it and say, look, I just put my money into something. I didn't know what my lawyers did with it. I didn't know that it was being used for HUD. I didn't know. And he tried to make himself the hero in this story. Look, I'm just trying to help the poor man. Sean Hannity is not trying to help anybody but Sean Hannity. That's his game. Watch his show for 5 seconds and realize that, like, he doesn't give a shit. Like, he doesn't actually order edible arrangements, guys. Newsflash, that's an advertiser. He's in it for himself. And there's nothing wrong with that.
As someone, I don't watch Sean Hannity beyond the clips I see like posted online. Is that an actual advertiser for him?
That is an actual advertiser for him.
That's the funniest thing I've ever heard.
At least
who
on
the
his...
hell?
Yeah.
Who the hell decided that edible arrangements and Sean Hannity go together? I've never seen him rant and thought, you know what I need right now? A chocolate strawberry.
Yeah.
But like one that's like really overpriced.
Right. Not just a chocolate strawberry, a bouquet of chocolate strawberries.
Cut to look like roses.
Yeah. So that's actually an advertiser of his on the radio. So I don't know that's a TV advertiser. He's got a radio show too. I feel like I'm fucking promoting Sean Hannity. You should not listen to him.
I honestly, no, I can't stand to look at the man, which is why I can't get through his show beyond the Twitter clips I see.
Well, he's completely full of shit.
I honestly, I look at his clips, and if they're more than about 5 minutes long, I'm like, I can't put up with them for longer than that.
No, I can't put up with him for 30 seconds. Like, to me, the way that I used to feel about Glenn Beck when he had a show, it is how I now feel about Sean Hannity. The golden days of being able to mock online, Glenn Beck made it. He was the Alex Jones of his time. Fox News. Yeah, absolutely.
Fox News.
I mean, he was the guy that literally
he paved way for the crazy people.
He made the Nazi comparisons mainstream. He compared everything to Nazi Germany, like literally everything. And he cried on a nightly basis. And God, I miss you, Glenn. If only you didn't try to take down Tommy Lahren, you dumbass.
Missouri's Republican Governor Eric Greitens says he will not resign despite calls from state GOP leadership for him to step down. Greitens is facing a felony invasion of privacy charge stemming from an extramarital affair he had in 2015. His former mistress alleges he restrained, slapped, and threatened her during their relationship. Some members of Greitens' own party also suggested Tuesday the governor's use of a charity donor list for political purposes could be a violation of Missouri law. Greitens released a statement Tuesday saying, "I will not be resigning the governor's office. In 3 weeks, this matter will go to a court of law where it belongs and where the facts will prove my innocence."
Let's move into the last couple things we got. We have a couple of Missouri stories that we'll go through real quick, both of which that we've talked about before, so we probably don't need to spend too much time on them. But let's go into, I guess, the lesser, more ridiculous one first. So today, Missouri actually introduced their ban on, or their bill to ban pornography. We talked about this several weeks ago, that it was something that was being talked about. And I actually think this is a different bill. I don't think this is the same senator that we talked about the last time we talked about it. But I'm not even going to get into names or anything. I can pretty much just sum this up. Basically, Missouri now is trying to introduce, the Republican legislature is trying to introduce a bill that would ban pornography, is citing it as a public health risk because it is, and citing it as addictive. And so they want to
and they actually tie in the Greitens thing. They specifically mentioned that they almost try to give him an out. Like, this is the reason why it happened, because pornography, which is not, I don't think it's ever been brought up, his pornography habits. So
no, absolutely not.
That did not play a part.
No. Now, what we can say is that we do know that there are separate studies that have nothing at all to do with the Missouri legislature about porn habits in the United States and in the world and what they do. And I feel like what he was trying to do, what the senator was trying to do when he was reaching for the Greitens comparison, is we've seen studies before that say that, like, I think it could be probably proven, and anybody who's being honest with themselves that could hear our voices right now probably say that porn is addictive. Like, that, I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah, in the same way that anything like drugs are addictive. Like, there are people that become addicted to, and there is like definitely porn that is not healthy. I think it's not a shocking statement.
Now, and we know that the people who
it's a very poorly regulated industry because no one wants to talk about it openly. So
yeah,
just
exactly.
In private.
And we know too that people that do consume porn on a regular basis, like, it, at least studies have shown that it does change their sexual habits. It does change the way that they interact with their partners and whatever. And I have a feeling that was the reach that he was trying to make to tie into the Greitens thing, is that, like, well, maybe Greitens has like a porn problem and that's the reason that he's taking pictures of people.
And then tied it into a more grandiose, like, oh, it's a cultural problem. It's the times we live in. It's the internet that allows porn. Which ties it back into that earlier bill, which I don't even think it's related to, but the earlier bill to try to block people's phones and laptops from accessing porn in Missouri, which got nowhere.
Yeah.
But it seems almost like and it's different people, but it just seems like a common topic on the brain for them.
And I'm going to speculate here, but what I'm assuming is that this is probably some, like, super Christian conservative that is just, like...
He is a Republican. I don't know, super Christian. I mean, he's, again, like, the local representatives don't have a lot of exposure. They don't, But you can follow him on Twitter, but that's obviously very...
But the reason I'm speculating here is because he's a conservative in Missouri. It stands
the reason he's very... Yeah, he probably wouldn't have gotten elected without referencing God at least once.
Right.
History would tell us.
Not to say he's probably not, like, he probably is having affairs, because that's typically how that works with Christian conservative politicians. It's like, speak one thing and do coke with your gay prostitute in the back room. That happens, but...
didn't Greitens himself run on, like, I'm the family man, I'm the hero?
Right, yeah, except
and
for
then
when
we're like a year in and we're like, oh, did his controversy just go from I took pictures and blackmailed a woman to I kind of raped a woman?
I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. That's what we talked about last week on the last episode, is that, the when she gave her testimony, that it came down to he slapped her for having another sexual partner, which was her ex-husband, or at the time husband. I don't know exactly the timeline there, but he, like, had hit her because he was supposed to be the only partner that she was having while he was having the... Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry to get off topic. Do you know who the husband is? This just came out. Moon Valjean. If you listen to our local rock radio station, 105.7 The Point, he was a member of Story of the Year, local rock band. Who's made some... that's the ex-husband. One of his ex-wives. I think he's had one or two. He was the one that heard about this during their council and informed people. He started all this.
No shit.
It's so weird because I listen to The Point every morning on my way to work. Like in between radio, like if they're not entertaining me too many ads, I switch over to music or the talk or the morning show. And they've talked about Greitens, and Moon has not said anything like publicly until it just came out that he was the guy that did this.
No this all rolling. Shit. That is insane. Yeah. That's crazy.
So, Ghost Story of the Year. Well, no, I don't even think he's with them anymore. He got kicked out. So,
yeah, probably because he was. Well,
Go Greek Fire. Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Man,
he's in like 16 different bands. It's hard to keep up, but yeah, dude, like the story locally keeps getting weirder and weirder. Like,
yeah,
I know that guy. I know that guy.
Yeah. That's crazy. That is totally crazy. But yeah, to your point about the potential rape thing, there was that story about like him slapping her or whatever, and then there was also in her testimony, I guess she said that like he wouldn't let her leave until she gave him oral sex, and like she was crying through it, and like so yeah, it went from taking a picture of this woman to like
and threatening her.
Right,
to
some
like
rapey stuff, yeah. And the big development in the Greitens thing this week was, so I don't know if we had talked about it the last time that we talked about this story, but I know that there was some issues with the way the prosecution has handled this story or this case. They've actually done some like seemingly sneaky shit. Like, so there was a video testimony from this woman, and the prosecution said that the videotape wasn't working, so they didn't have the testimony. But 3 weeks later, they just like handed it over to the judge. They were like, "Oh, it was working. Here you go." But they didn't hand it to the defense. So like that in court cases, like both sides have to be able to see all of the evidence. And so there was talks about whether or not this case was going to get thrown out. And last Thursday, it went in front of the judge to be decided on whether it was going to be thrown out or not. And surprisingly to me, I really thought that this was their like O.J. Simpson moment where the prosecution fucked up so bad that like this was just not going to go the way that it was expected to go. Surprisingly, it's not off. It's going to continue to move forward, and the judge basically said, "Hey, don't fuck up again. Like, don't."
Which I remember you telling me, like, I was not as convinced. I thought it was going to go this way, but I remember you saying, like, no, dude, the prosecution has actually like fumbled the ball on this case quite a few times,
right? Yeah,
and like I could totally see a judge being like, well, technicality is what it is. That's the law.
Yeah. So, but no, I was shocked.
Don't you almost kind of expect him to get let? Like at this point in my American experience of 30 years, I kind of expect the governor to walk away. Like I know I've seen like Blagojevich and every other governor of Illinois arrested and handcuffed.
Right.
I didn't think it was to happen in our clean cut state.
Right. I really thought, and the other thing too, I thought that if he does walk away from this, like if it had gotten thrown out, I thought that like, well, that's the end of Greitens' woes, because like now that there's another case that they're looking at with Greitens, and Josh Hawley, who is challenging Claire McCaskill for Senate run, current Attorney General of Missouri, came out like the day after the court, or I guess it was probably the day before the court case, the invasion of privacy, which is about this woman. Before this got decided on, the day before that, Josh Hawley came out and said that they found evidence of crimes that he committed with his charitable foundation where he took, what did he take?
The email, the donor list.
The donor list, so that he could try to get votes, and he used that for his campaign. And so Josh Hawley then sent that, basically told the prosecutor, the same prosecutor in St. Louis who is already filed charges for the invasion of privacy, he basically told her, hey, there's a statute of limitations here. It's about to run out. If you're going to file charges on this, you need to file charges on it now. And she did. So Greitens is fucked at this point.
Yeah,
like
he really is.
And
he might as well like not even pay to keep up the domain greitensforpresident.com. Dude, it ain't gonna happen unless you're running for president of your local like Elks Lodge. It ain't gonna work.
Yeah, no. And the thing is too, even first of all, let me comment on the. What's interesting to me is that conservatives in Missouri held their nose for Eric Greitens. He was not anybody's first choice. People did not like Eric Greitens. In fact, some conservatives that I know even considered voting for the Democrat because of how much they disliked Eric Greitens. But now all of a sudden, at least if you listen to the local conservative radio, it's like, oh, it's a witch hunt. Oh, it's a witch hunt. Is that all that Republicans have left in 2018, is to just call every scandal a witch hunt? Because this, to me, seems pretty damn cut and dry on both instances. At least if you were to believe the testimony from this woman.
I could see the whole, like, so I could see someone making an argument, I'm not saying it's correct, about the way, like, you can't take something that's told to you in therapy and tell it to a third party.
Yeah,
but if there's a crime involved, can't you? Like, I don't know. Like, I can see the other argument, but I don't know that either side. But obviously, I like if there's a guy out there, forcing women to have sex with him or not letting him leave the house. Yeah, he probably shouldn't be the governor of one of our 50 states.
Right, absolutely, and I think that was one of the things that bothered me the most about what I saw on social media. Was there was a lot of sentiment that was like, well, his bedroom habits are his own habits. Not if he's raping
no, it's not
people.
His bedroom.
Not if
because when it was he cheated on his wife, no one would have cared. It was that he took a picture and blackmailed the woman. That was the juicy part of the story that got national attention.
I'm not
blackmail's
saying
the word there.
Right. We're talking about abuse. Yeah, sure. If he cheated on his wife, that's his own business. That's their own business. But like,
no one cares. No one really cares that Trump cheated. Like, it's the paying off of the people and the threatening of the people. That's where you get into trouble.
Right. Which, by the way, just let me tell you how right I was. I've jokingly said a million times that it was Scaramucci who threatened her. Did you see the fucking sketch artist drawing? Like, that's Scaramucci with some stubble, right? Like, absolutely. It's Scaramucci, okay?
Oh, that is so great. We'll have to throw that as our background Twitter picture and Facebook.
Yeah, no shit.
Like a side by side.
So basically, let's sum up the two-part Missouri rant here, right? Don't touch my fucking pornography, because you're like, I agree with what Mitch had said earlier to me. Like, just tell me who I have to vote out to get this to stop. Like, that don't.
Yeah, I'll be learning the names of the people that want to do this. Like, we'll remember.
I can't imagine, like, at this point in technological history, right? No state's getting rid of pornography, right? Because at some point
you can best hope to regulate it, like, because I don't think any state can completely get. Can you tell every one of your how many citizens do we have? 300 million, whatever, 350, like, to turn off their sex drive? That's ridiculous.
No,
you're fighting millions of years of evolution. Like,
and the fact of the matter is, you said a minute ago, which I thought was a really good point, that like, it's a hard subject to talk about because nobody wants to talk about it. I think if you try to take it away, you'll be surprised at how many of those quiet voices get loud. Like,
yeah, I mean, like, especially online when you don't have to, like,
right.
And if you wear an anonymous mask, it might make it easier. But
right,
I think there has been historically a stigma against that that's starting to change a little bit, especially with online communities. People of certain like, if you have a fetish, you find others online that have that. You finally feel like you're part of a community. I could totally see that opening up like floodgates. But again, like, I understand, like, porn is it's porn. It's not all good.
No, absolutely not. But the thing about fighting back, even if you wanted to remain anonymous, like your theory, you just change your profile picture to a picture of naked Melania Trump and fucking throw up your goddamn comment, and there you go, right? Like, you don't have to be accountable for. It doesn't have to be you that's fighting this fight. It could be naked Melania Trump fighting this fight for you. So I just want you all to know that there's a picture of naked Melania Trump out there. So go ahead, do your Googling. And then
I don't need to see that.
It's
not.
not.
If there was a picture of Donald Trump, I was like, nah.
No, dude. I agreed with you. I don't want to see naked Donald Trump.
I don't want to think about their sex life. I don't want to think about. I've never wanted to think about a president's
sex
life.
Here's the
always
honest reality
me when it comes up.
Here's the honest reality, Frank. I'm about to send you this picture of naked Melania Trump. It's not a bad picture. So, anyway, one day it'll be hanging on my wall because fucking I want it to be made into like a canvas. So not because I think
is this the first lady that has ever done a centerfold?
I would hope so. I would think so.
Like, I can't imagine Mary Todd Lincoln posing for a
Eleanor Roosevelt. I think did it once or twice. But no.
Matthew Brady's other career, he filmed that he took pictures of the Civil War and the first one.
Yes. All right, let's get into my favorite. Or no, actually, let's not. We got one more before we. So we've got two more. I'm just thinking out loud here. See, I told you, it's going to be a shit show.
Yeah, because we have to deal with the shit in Florida. It's always Florida, man.
Right. It's always Florida. So what happened, Frank?
Or it's, Alabama, but Florida too.
Right. So in Florida, police, you have the story in front of you, right?
So,
basically, go ahead.
2 Florida detectives showed up at a funeral home last month and attempted to use the dead man's fingerprint to unlock his phone. That was the original story. Now, it has since come out that it did not work.
Right.
They were unsuccessful in unlocking his phone, which kind of, I mean, I don't know. It gets into a thorny legal issue, like...
we don't even need to know where that story went. What do you think about that? Like, just...
I mean, that is pretty much the story. That this is, like, the first time it's happened, and people are just like, oh, like, do you need a warrant for that? Because normally you would need a warrant to open someone's phone.
Right.
To access it. You'd have to be looking for something specific. You'd have to know what you were looking for. Now, they were looking for... needed access to in order to preserve data stored on the handset that was potentially tied to a separate drug inquiry involving a deceased suspect, another deceased man. So now in that case, they said they were looking for a crime, but at that point, like, you have the phone and you have the warrant to get into the phone. Don't you have a way of doing that besides going to a funeral parlor and disturbing a funeral?
Right. Yeah, which, to be fair, they probably didn't disturb the funeral. That would be a scene if they walked in the middle of a funeral. I'm sure that this was done.
Yeah, that's me being the cinematic file or the cinephile that I am.
Right.
Like,
Still,
I'm writing a movie about all this, man. It's gonna be an epic beast.
To me, though, it comes down to the same. Like, I hate to say this, and I know that this is gonna be unpopular before I even fucking utter the words, but to me, it's similar to the San Bernardino shooting thing, right? Like,
yeah, how much of your phone is private,
right?
And protected by privacy.
Even though you might be a bad guy, like, I still think you have to have a warrant for that. And even with a warrant, if you can't access it, First of all, I don't know that. Like, because you remember with the San Bernardino thing, what they tried to do is they try to force Apple.
Yeah, and that's
open
actually.
it.
That's in the Comey book. Comey was the FBI director during that, so we'll talk about that a little more next week. But it's a sticky legal issue because, like, I see the point of needing to get into it but my other thought was there's no law saying that you can't design an unbreakable safe and store it in your house and put your valuables in it. The government never comes to you and says we have to have access to get into that safe in case you turn into a bad guy.
Right.
But with phones, they make that argument. I know it's different to that analogy because phones are more individualized.
But no, I think
they're more of an extension of your life.
I think it's a totally fair analogy too, because the fact of the matter is, once you do this once you do this for San Bernardino, or once you walk into a funeral parlor and you use a deceased person to get into a phone, you've now set a precedent. And once you've set a precedent that this is okay to do if the person's dead, then why can't you do it if the person's alive? Oh, well, you're in jail now. So because you're in jail, you don't have legal rights, or the same legal rights. So now we're just going to access your phone because we need it as part of an investigation.
It also made me realize that fingerprint readers are not nearly as secure as we think they are, because in handcuffs, I can't imagine it would be very hard to press your thumb up against there and unlock your phone and start going through it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think a password would be the most secure option, because you have to pry that out of someone's brain and they have to physically tell you.
Right. So, personal opinion.
So change your damn locks, people.
Right. Personal opinion on this. Do you think that should be allowed in this case where person is deceased, they have a warrant to get into the phone? Do you think that they cross a legal line once they go use a dead person's hand to get into their phone?
I think of it as if you have a warrant to search someone's house, you don't knock on the door and say, open up the doors. You break in the damn doors.
Right.
Shouldn't they be actually, I'm a little terrified that my government can't think around. Do you not have people good enough? I know Apple can offer more. I know Samsung can offer more than the government probably.
Right.
Or does, because we spend so much on areas we don't need to.
Right.
But do we not have the smart enough people to combat this? And if not, that's kind of terrifying. We need to up our game, because we need to be thinking about this and the future. This is going to be a problem. And if we haven't already foreseen this, the people in leadership roles aren't thinking long term.
Well, if people in leadership roles don't foresee anything, I'll refer you back to the Facebook talk.
What was the San Bernardino? I'm sorry to get off topic, but the San Bernardino thing didn't even Apple said no, the FBI said yes, and then some random third party was like, "Hey, Apple, we got this. We got into the phone in 3 days."
Yeah,
that's what it took. It took a third party being like, "Here, I'll stop," and then now we're having the same argument because it's kind of coming up again,
right?
And there's not that moderator to come in and save it.
Although, to be fair, in that case too, it wasn't that Apple couldn't access it. It was that
they refused.
Refused, and I think that they did the right thing.
Well, refusing. No, I think they did. They said they couldn't. I think they said the way they designed it, they could not even get in because they didn't want themselves to have that power. Now, they could have rewritten the code and probably got in, but I think the whole point was that encryption's only good is if the person encrypting it has complete access to it. If there's a backdoor that anybody can get in, it's worthless because they can be hacked.
Right. Yeah.
So I believe that's what Apple's point was, is that even we can't access our users' personal data because it's personal. It's an extension of their lives at this point, which a cell phone is to anybody who uses one regularly.
Yeah. No, it's definitely an interesting topic. And
have you seen the studies that I think even among millennials, it's would you rather break up with your significant other or lose your phone? And the numbers are actually scarily close.
Really?
It's surprising.
Put myself on the record here and say I would give up my phone in a second. I actually hate
you treat your phone like it's the enemy though. So
yeah, I do not like phone. I don't like smartphone technology. So, and a big part of that is I think that our generation has become zombified by this technology.
Weird for a man who runs a podcast that is almost exclusively listened to on handheld cell phones.
I understand that. I do understand that. It's a love-hate relationship. But, I do think that our phones have zombified us, as a generation. I don't know how many times I walk into a restaurant or something and no one's looking at each other. Everybody's looking at their fucking phones. I don't know how many times I walk through my family's house and fucking can't, guys, can we put, it's dinner.
The only thing I will say is that, at least, well, I mean, watching videos, but maybe at least they're reading more. which I think you could say about us. The fact that we have phones. I read more today because in addition to reading books, I'm reading articles all day long on my phone.
That's true.
So I think I'm probably more well read because of my phones. But there are definitely some.
I will say, that is a valid point. A lot of the media, I do listen to.
I'm smarter because of my phone.
Yeah,
because I'm able to keep up more with it. It is more distracting,
but,
and I do put myself in the danger of dying every time I drive.
It's true that you're but I think there's a balance here, right? Because we're smarter in some aspects. I do get a lot of my news from my phone as well, but in the same way, I can't do simple fucking math anymore because I don't need to. I don't need to retain certain knowledge because I can just ask Google, "Hey, what is this?" And not
but I think
math,
but evolutionary, that's a good thing for us. Like, if we don't need that knowledge, we're going to say, all right, well, if we can get that knowledge from our phones, there's no reason to keep it in our brain. Use that space in your brain for something else. Like, I don't know if that's the way brains work. That could be totally off.
So then shouldn't the education system just be how to use your phone?
Maybe it should.
I don't know. Save ourselves a lot of damn money. So anyway, all right. Let's jump into this last couple real quick. Because I keep lying to you about the amount of stories that we have. This one's a really quick one, but something that I thought was really cool that I saw. I sent you earlier today. I guess there was a dude in, I believe it was Detroit. If not, it was a suburb of Detroit that was suicidal. He was up on an overpass. He was going to jump, or he was threatening to jump. That's not what's cool. I know that was a weird lead in. But so the police are obviously trying to talk him down and get, whatever. And so in an interesting move by the police, they basically got on the dispatcher, whatever, radioed for like a semi truck. They wanted a semi truck to
really quickly. I thought when you said it in an interesting move, the police, I thought you said use the dead man's finger to open his phone.
Oh, no!
Like, damn it, it's fucking everywhere, Alabama,
everywhere. Yeah, no. They basically
brought in a truck.
They what they wanted to do is they wanted this semi to pull up and like kind of take away the distance between this guy and the highway. And I guess, I don't know if it happened. I don't know that they radioed everybody, but basically what happened is 13 trucks pulled up under this overpass, lined the entire, on both sides of the highway, lined the entire highway, so that if this guy did jump, he was only going to fall like 8 or 10 feet. He wasn't going to be able to kill himself. And by even if you take away the fact that he was going to land on them, with them pulling up under this overpass on both sides of the highway, there was no way he was going to hit traffic because traffic wasn't moving on these highways. It's a really, really cool picture of these trucks. And what was neat about it was that that there was somebody there to stop this guy from committing suicide. Well,
I mean, a lot of suicide attempts are cries for help. So I'm always appreciative when they treat these people as if they're they don't truly want to kill themselves, or else they would have jumped in front of traffic. They would have,
right.
They're trying to get someone's attention, and I'm glad that they did that. That is a hell of a picture, actually. I remember you sent that to me, and that coupled with the headline is it's a powerful.
Yeah, it was a really, really cool picture. And then the headline was that, and then in the description,
you don't often get that from Fox 2 News. I don't know if the one you sent me, I think it was Fox 2 Detroit, and I was just like, Fox 2, oh, a cheerful headline, that's odd.
Right. Yeah, it was really a neat picture. And then they also had I think our local news station that posted it was KMOV, and they had the suicide prevention hotline number on there. And it was, I don't know, it was just neat to me to see that
I love that they do that now. Whenever there's a story about suicide, they try to balance it, which I think is, because I think they got attacked for a while for glorifying it, for covering it,
Right.
in such a statistic manner, just for like to glorify it for the ratings.
Right.
So I like the fact that they're now like trying to be like, hey, if you feel like this, here's the thing you should do, and highlighting stories like this is a good way to do it.
I think that's what moved me, along with the picture, about this story, is the fact that like it seemed like news organizations, it seemed like the police, it seemed like the truckers were all. They didn't know this person, so it's not like, arms out, we're trying to give you a hug, we're trying to bring you in, but it seemed, whether or not accurate, it seemed like there was somebody there to care for this person, to look after this person. And
yeah, it's nice to know that when people hear someone's in trouble, they don't ask who's in trouble or like where are they from or would I like them. They just like jump up and help. That's so especially from semi-truck drivers who are not, they're not paid to be heroes.
Right. Yeah.
The fact that they would rush out there and do that, like that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was. And it
I just hope the guy, like, obviously hope the person gets help, but
yeah,
I'm glad it ended with a positive note. That's rarely the case.
Yeah, agreed. And like when I saw that, it made me feel good about, because especially here on the show, we talk about so much bad shit that happens on a week-to-week basis. And it was nice to see that this could have gone badly. This is not a great story. We are talking about an attempted suicide, but there's a silver lining here. And that silver lining made me feel good when I saw the headline. So I thought it was worth mentioning. I think the picture is awesome. I'm sure that we'll put it out there. So
I think it should be the episode art, I believe.
Yeah.
If the future it goes how I think it will,
for sure. So, all right, now let's get
our next story is also about mass transit systems for like moving shit around the country.
Yeah, it's
actually
do that
on purpose.
It's actually the story that made me feel the best this week, because you know me. So poop train, right? There's a apparently
you don't even need to. You had me at poop train, Brandon.
Right?
Continue.
That's so the greatest story of my week, or the last 2 weeks, is when I saw that a train full of human shit that was traveling, which I didn't know that we put human shit on trains, but apparently we do.
It's interesting because we live around a very trainy part of the country.
Yeah,
there's a lot of trains that run through here, so it's interesting that a lot of the trains that have passed me in my life probably contained shit from New York.
Yes, so a bunch of shit from New York ends up is being, I don't know where they were headed, but the train broke down in Alabama. Oh my God, how excited was Brandon when he saw this headline that a train of shit broke down in Alabama, and the residents are fuming. See what I did there? About
it was actually what's funny is that it was headed to Alabama. It just hadn't made its way to the shit part of Alabama yet. It was in the slightly less shitty one.
So the residents are obviously not thrilled about this. It smells like shit, as you would imagine, but I imagine that's what Alabama smells like anyway. So that's just, I just figured that was normal. So happy that this happened, because if you are listening for the first or second time, go back and follow the breadcrumbs of why
I was saying we might have misspoke when we said that shootings were the most talked about topic. Like, I'm pretty sure it's Alabama, Brandon.
It probably is Alabama.
Taking shots.
That's because they, fuck Alabama. So right?
I wanted you to say they bring it on themselves. They asked for it. I wanted that soundbite.
But they do. I don't know. Go back and you can listen to we drop turd nuggets through the entire show and you can just work your way back to figure out why we hate Alabama here. But nothing makes me happier than when I see a train of shit that breaks down in Alabama. It really,
I love that it was New York shit, because the people in the paper, like, they were being quoted as like, oh, I just think this is Northerners like dumping on us Southerners again, like it was planned, like it was part of some vast conspiracy by the liberal media.
Of course, that's how you know how those liberals are, shitting on everybody all the time. So Anyway, poop train. That should be the name of the episode, right? Like, yeah. Anyway, I guess we'll finish it there with poop train. Next week, Mitch will be back on the show. We will review the Comey book, so I'm super, super excited about that. It will be.
Yeah, that might be the longest episode because I think we're probably going to do like a good amount of the episode on that once we get talking about it.
I think you're probably right because I don't know. I just have a feeling we are. I know that I told you that this episode wasn't going to make it to length, and somehow we filled all of the time that we normally do. So, that's what happens. Hold on real quick. Frank, talk for a second.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to, you can follow us on Twitter at TDAP 2017 because we refused to update that year.
Well, yeah, why would we? This isn't, we're not professional or anything. We've told you this a million times. We have no integrity. So,
well, I mean, I have a little integrity.
Bullshit.
Speak for yourself, Brandon.
You know what sucks is I'm trying to milk this time here, and it's not working out the way that I had planned on it. Go ahead and tell them
what are you trying to find exactly?
I'm trying to find the reviews that I told you last week that I was going to read.
Do you want to do that? Do you want to do that on our 50th episode? Save that for next week.
Yeah,
for the Comey.
Yeah, I guess let's do it on our next episode because.
So that was all a planned tease, and we're just perfect actors.
Yes,
it's not us utter failing to end the show on a proper note.
Right? No, it's not like we haven't done this before. So, as Frank said, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at TDAP 2017 because we're not going to change it. Episodes are available weekly on iTunes and Google Play, wherever podcasts are found. Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up for the week. So join us for episode 50. It's definitely going to be a good one. We're excited about it. We'll have some announcements to make about the show going forward, as well as the much we're anticipating reviewing this book. We're really excited about this book. And again, if you haven't read it, do it. Like
if you've never read a political book, which I can't imagine you haven't if you're listening to this, start with his because it will make you want to read more. Yeah, it does. And I'm telling you right now, Frank said it earlier, if you can, listen, and Mitch actually said it to me when we were talking earlier today. He said, I'm so glad that I started with the audiobook because he's so good at reading it. Like he's very good at telling his own story, and it's gonna make the written book even better. So check it out. And yeah, I think that pretty much does it for this week. So as always, here it is, your alternative fact of the week.
The poop train, as residents call it, has been sitting in this small town since January.
I thought we had dead bodies around. I thought I was actually hitting animals or dead animals with the lawnmowers.